Hello friends, today's question for you. Tell me about access modifiers in C#. The answer is access modifiers is a keyword which is used to apply accessibility restriction on the member of the class and a structure. That means whether the member of the class would be accessible inside the class only or outside the class or outside the assembly. This kind of restriction we can apply within the class or structure using access modifier. There are 5 types of access modifier we have: public, private, internal, protected and protected internal. Right? What is public? What is the use of public access modifier? What it does? Well, public, it does not apply any restriction on any types, meaning it does not apply any restriction on the member of the class. Member of the class are variable, method, property, events. Right? If any member of the class like property, method, event, indexer and variable marked as public, it will be accessible inside the class, right, outside the class and outside of assembly. To understand this in a better way, this is the one project I am working on, program.cs. I have offered a new Visual Studio instance and I'll create a new project. This is a class library project. Name it assembly 2. Well, why we are creating as class library project? Because when we compile class library project, it creates a DLL that we can refer in other application wherever we want to use this. So this is assembly 2.a. This is the name of the class, assembly 2a. Assembly 1a. This is a different, don't get confused. This is the console application, program.cs, this is a different application, and assembly 2, this is a different application. Now what we have to understand, the accessibility of public. Let's create, we have created a class, create a member, public string underscore public modifier is equal to hi, I am public modifier. Let's check accessibility of this public modifier within the same class. There is a class within the same class, like public string get modifier method I've created. So these public modifier is accessible within the method within the same class as well, right? Now the second, inside the class we have checked it is accessible inside the class, outside of the class. Let's create another class, public class assembly 2 underscore b. Let's create object of assembly 2a, sorry, public modifier. There is a public class and public modifier we have string build build succeeded. We have checked within the class public modifier, outside of the class public modifier, outside of assembly. What does it mean outside of assembly? See, I have named it assembly2, assembly2a. This is a separate application class.cs. It is an assembly. It will compile and create one assembly. This is console application. This is entirely a different project. This will be compile and create a different assembly. So to check it out, let's build this one. Succeed. Go to here. Sorry. assembly2.dll. What is DLL? When we compile any class library application, it creates a DLL that we can use in any other application, in any other assembly as well, you can say. So we have a console application. Here we refer this assembly. Copy the path so that we can access that class in this different project. Added reference. Now namespace assembly2. To access these member of the class, we need to use first namespace. Add namespace using assembly2. Build succeeded. Create an object of assembly1a. Sorry, 2. A obj is equal to new string. This is the public modifier. So we have checked this is the assembly1, this is the assembly2. Two separate instances of Visual Studio. I have referred assembly2 here within the assembly1 and created object assembly2, and here I can easily access the public modifier. This is outside of the assembly. So I hope this is clear to you. Two different instances, two different assembly, and public modifier accessible inside the class, outside the class, and outside the assembly as well. And we have checked what is the meaning of outside the assembly and how we can access outside the assembly. Right. Let's move to next. Private. It is accessible within the scope of class and structure only. What is the meaning of like this? Private string underscore private modifier. This is the private within the scope of class. Mean this private modifier will be accessible within this class only, not this class, and not even outside of the assembly. Let's check. We are accessing a public modifier. Delete here. IntelliSense only public modifier is accessible. Not even. Let's copy and paste this variable. Try to access and build. Private modifier is inaccessible due to protection level. So it is protected, like it is protected that it will not be accessible outside of the class. Like how can I check it is accessible inside the class? Like here, copy, build. Okay, this one need to remove. Build succeeded. So accessible inside class only, right? What is this? Accessible inside, outside of class and outside of assembly as well, right? Internal. What is internal modifier? Internal is accessible within class, outside of the class, but within same assembly only. Here's an important point, like you can consider it like public modifier. The only difference is it is not accessible outside of assembly, like it is like public member, accessible anywhere inside or outside the class but within the same assembly. Let's check it out. Internal string, internal to high, internal modifier declared. See, we can access inside the member. Yes, well succeeded. Inside it is accessible. Now here assembly 2 object is already created. This its object is already created here. Object dot try to access internal modifier. Succeeded. Internal modifier is accessible inside the class, we have checked. Outside of the class is we have checked. Now let's check it is accessible outside of assembly or not. This is a different assembly where we have referred assembly 2. This is assembly 1 dot. Now we can access public modifier only. There is no internal modifier is available. Just copy and paste. Assembly 2 it does not contain definition of internal modifier, meaning it does not have even know that internal modifier even exists in assembly 2. So no, only public modifier. We know the difference. Only within the same assembly it is accessible, not outside of the assembly. Within the same assembly accessible, right? And now the next is protected. It is accessible to the derived class only, inside or outside of assembly. Derived class, who is the derived class? The class who inherit, only that class can access the protected member. Protected modifier. Sorry. Modifier name 1 string underscore m2 is equal to obj dot internal and public modifier is accessible only. Protected modifier is not accessible. Why? Because it is accessible to the derived class only, or we can say it is accessible to the child class only, or the one who inherit this. Like let's inherit assembly 2a. We have inherited. It is accessible assembly 2a. In this class it is accessible. No, it is not accessible to this class. It is accessible to the derived class only. To the derived class it is accessible to this class because we have inheriting assembly 2b is inheriting in assembly 2a, so the protected member is available only to the assembly 2b. Obj dot, yeah, internal modifier. Even if you see, public modifier is also accessible for this. We have already checked here assembly 2a object, we have created assembly 2b object. We can say it is accessible to the any class, even inherited class. Internal modifier, public modifier, sorry, let's example object 2 dot protected modifier, right? We have checked that internal modifier is also accessible, public modifier is also accessible. It is accessible anywhere in the class, like any member of the class can access it. And protected member is accessible to the class who inherit the class, to the derived class only. This is assembly 2b derived class, so protected member is accessible, fine. Internal public modifier, assembly 2a declare protected member, and it is there is no access of protected member is assembly 2a. Assembly 2b inheriting assembly 2a, that's why it can access protected member. Let's see what is next. And the one is internal protected internal. What is protected? It is accessible inside and outside of the class in the same assembly, but in different assembly only to the derived class. Well, good. First of all, let's understand internal, within the same assembly only, within the same assembly only, anywhere in the class, within the same assembly, not outside of the assembly. This is what internal modifier. We have already checked internal modifier is accessible by assembly 2a. Let's remove the inheritance, create assembly 2b object, obj2 is equal to new obj two dot. It is not accessible here because we have removed the inheritance. Clear? Now we have internal modifier here accessible. Can we access this internal modifier? Here we have already seen no, we cannot access internal modifier here. Let's inherit here assembly 1a colon assembly 2 underscore a. Assembly 1 is inheriting class, assembly 2a, right? Assembly 1a obj is equal to new assembly 1a obj dot public modifier is accessible only. Internal modifier is not even accessible even if we have inherited assembly 2a within the assembly 1a, right? Now if I make it protected, see what happens. This is here public modifier. Let's build this protected internal. Let's build this. Obj dot, yes, this is a protected, sorry, internal modifier now accessible. How internal modifier is accessible? Because we make it protected internal. So what internal does internal make it accessible within the same class, and protected we add this, like internal made it available within the same class. When we added protected, it is available to the derived class also within the same and outside the same assembly, right? The difference between protected and protected internal is that protected is accessible to the derived class only, either in the same assembly of different assembly, but protected member is accessible to the any class in the same assembly and to the derived class outside of the assembly. Clear? If we remove this protected internal, build this in the assembly 2, we are referring this. Now no, internal modifier is not accessible, is not available. Mark it protected internal, build succeeded. So protected internal is accessible now. We have covered the topic access modifier, all the access modifier we have covered. If you didn't understand anything, please comment me, and for more videos, like and subscribe. Thanks.